The alarm bells rang through Nexus Station like a death song. Admiral Kira Voss pressed her crystal hand against the cold metal wall and felt the vibrations run through her translucent body. Another fleet was gone. The 7th one this month. How many ships did we lose this time? She asked without turning around. Her voice carried the weight of 3 years of constant defeat. Commander Zeth walked up behind her, his insect-like legs clicking on the metal floor. His forearms held data tablets that glowed with bad news. The entire 4th Defense Fleet, 67 ships, no survivors. Kira closed her large, diamond-like eyes. 67 ships meant thousands of lives. Thousands of families who would never see their loved ones again. The Zephyrian Empire was crushing them, one system at a time, one fleet at a time. That brings our total losses to, she started to say. 70% of all combined forces, Zeth finished. Admiral Voss, we cannot keep fighting like this. The enemy learns from every battle. Their bioships get stronger while we get weaker. Kira turned around and looked at the insect commander. Zeth had been her friend for many years, even before the war started. She trusted him more than anyone else in the coalition. If he was losing hope, then things were really bad. Call a meeting, she said. Get all the remaining fleet commanders. Here, we need to talk. 2 hours later, the war room was full of worried faces. The Viridian crystal beings sparkled dimly in the low light. The Nathara floated in their gas suits, their cloud-like bodies swirling with nervous energy. The Kithara stood on their insect legs, their multiple eyes watching everything at once. Supreme Commander Thexala spoke first. Her voice buzzed through the translator. We have lost too much. The Zephyrians are too strong. They adapt to everything. We throw at them. Admiral Voss looked at the holographic display in the center of the room. Red dots showed where the enemy had taken control. There were so many red dots now. 17 whole star systems belonged to the Zephyrians. Billions of people were dead or enslaved. Their bioships are like nothing we have ever seen, said Fleet Commander Jex of the Nathara. His gas body turned dark blue with fear. They eat our energy weapons and grow stronger. They heal from damage in minutes. How do we fight something like that? The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. They couldn't fight the Zephyrians, not anymore. The enemy was too advanced, too adaptable, too powerful. Maybe we should retreat, whispered Commander Thexala. Pull back to the outer rim. Try to save what we can. And let them take everything? Admiral Voss slammed her crystal fist on the table. Let them destroy every world between here and the edge of space? No, there has to be another way. What other way? Asked Jex. We have tried everything. Our best weapons, our smartest tactics, our strongest ships. Nothing works against them. The lights in the room dimmed as another ship arrived at the station. This happened all the time now. Refugee ships, supply vessels, the few military ships that were left. But something was different this time. Lieutenant Kex ran into the room, his young face excited. Admiral Voss, you need to see this. What is it, Lieutenant? She asked. New ships just came out of hyperspace. Lots of them. But they're not in our database. We don't know who they are. Admiral Voss stood up quickly. Unknown ships could mean more enemies. Or maybe, just maybe, new allies. Put them on the main screen. The holographic display changed to show the space around Nexus Station. There, hanging in the darkness, was a fleet of ships like nothing they had ever seen. The vessels were gray and angular, with no organic curves. They looked hard and dangerous, like weapons made of metal and purpose. Are they Zephyrian? Asked Commander Thexala. No, said Jex. Zephyrian ships are alive. These look completely artificial. A communication signal came through the speakers. The voice that spoke was clear and strong, using the common galactic language but with a strange accent. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Fleet. We received your distress beacon. Humanity has arrived. The alien commanders looked at each other with confusion. Earth? That was the small blue planet on the edge of known space. The species there had barely discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. They were primitive compared to the great galactic civilizations. Earth? Admiral Voss spoke into the communicator. Admiral Morrison, we appreciate your offer to help, but I'm not sure you understand the situation here. We understand perfectly, Admiral Voss, came the reply. We've been monitoring Zephyrian movements for months. We know what you're facing, and we're here to help. Commander Zeth leaned over to Admiral Voss and whispered, What can they possibly do? Their technology is centuries behind ours. If we can't stop the Zephyrians, how can they? Admiral Voss had the same doubts, but she was desperate. Admiral Morrison, we would welcome any assistance, but you should know that we have lost 70% of our combined fleets. The enemy has bioships that adapt to our weapons. They learn from every battle and become stronger. There was a pause before the human voice replied. When it came back, there was something in the tone that made everyone in the room pay attention. Confidence. Not the desperate hope they had been living on, but real, solid confidence. Admiral Voss, we would like to request permission to dock with your station. My tactical team needs to review your battle data. We have some ideas that might surprise you. Ideas? What ideas could a primitive species have that the greatest minds in the galaxy hadn't already tried? But Admiral Voss was out of options. Permission granted, Admiral Morrison. Docking Bay 7 is clear for your shuttle. As the communication ended, the room remained quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. These humans had traveled across space to help them, but what could they really do? Their ships looked basic. Their technology was simple. They were just one small species against an empire that had conquered 17 star systems. Well, said Admiral Voss finally, I guess we're about to find out what humanity can offer. Outside the station, the human fleet hung in space like a promise or maybe a threat. The ships were smaller than the great vessels of the Galactic Coalition, but there was something about them that made them look dangerous. They were built for war, not for show. Inside those ships, human crews prepared for what they had come here to do. They had been planning this moment for months, studying every battle report, every tactical analysis, every piece of data about the Zephyrian Empire. The humans knew something that the Galactic Coalition had not yet learned. Sometimes the best way to fight an advanced enemy was not with more advanced weapons, but with weapons they had never seen before. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the alien station. Soon, he would meet with their commanders and show them what humanity had learned from 10,000 years of warfare. The Zephyrians thought they were unstoppable because they could adapt to energy weapons and advanced technology. But they had never faced kinetic weapons fired by a species that had spent millennia learning how to kill its own kind. They were about to discover that evolution had given humanity something no other species possessed: the knowledge of how to wage war against equals. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Kira Voss stood waiting with her senior officers, watching as the human shuttle settled onto the deck. The craft was smaller than she expected, built from gray metal with no decorative elements. It looked like a tool rather than a symbol of power. 3 humans stepped out of the shuttle. They wore simple blue uniforms with no fancy designs. The leader was a tall man with short brown hair and calm eyes. He walked with the steady pace of someone who had seen many battles. Admiral Voss, the man said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. I'm Admiral Jake Morrison. Thank you for allowing us to dock. Kira touched his hand briefly with her crystal fingers. The human's skin was warm and soft, so different from her own hard surface. Admiral Morrison, welcome to Nexus Station. Though I must warn you, the situation here is worse than our distress signals indicated. We understand, said a woman beside Morrison. She had black hair pulled back and sharp, intelligent eyes. I'm Commander Lisa Park, Tactical Officer. We've studied your battle reports during our journey here. The third human was younger, with blonde hair and an eager expression. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole, he introduced himself. I've been looking forward to examining your fleet data. Admiral Voss led them through the station corridors. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Most had never seen their species before. The humans looked so ordinary compared to the crystal beauty of the Viridians or the flowing grace of the Nethera. Tell me, Admiral Morrison, Kira said as they walked, what exactly do you think you can do that we cannot? The Zephyrian bioships have defeated every strategy we've tried. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Admiral, how long has your species been fighting wars? The question surprised her. The Viridians have had conflicts for about 3,000 years, but mostly small disputes over territory or resources. And the other species in your coalition? Similar timelines. The Kithera have the most experience with warfare, perhaps. 5,000 years. But why does this matter? They entered the war room where the other commanders waited. Commander Thexala's insect eyes focused on the humans with curiosity. Fleet Commander Jex's gas body swirled nervously in his containment suit. Morrison looked at the holographic display showing the current tactical situation. Red dots marked Zephyrian territory. Blue dots showed coalition forces. There were far more red dots than blue. Humanity has been at war for 10,000 years, Morrison said quietly. Not with other species, but with ourselves. Every weapon we've built, every tactic we've developed, came from fighting other humans who were just as smart and creative as we were. Commander Park stepped forward and activated a data pad. We've analyzed your battle records. Your weapons are impressive. Plasma cannons, energy shields, gravity manipulators, very advanced technology. But they're all energy-based, added Engineer Cole. Every single weapon system in your fleets uses some form of directed energy. Admiral Voss felt confused. Of course, energy weapons are the most efficient way to deliver destructive force across space. Morrison nodded. For most purposes, yes. But the Zephyrians evolved to fight energy-based civilizations. Their bioships can absorb energy and redirect it. They've been doing this for millions of years. We know this. Commander Thexala buzzed impatiently. This is why we cannot defeat them. They adapt to our weapons. But what if, Commander Park said, you used weapons they've never encountered? Weapons that work on completely different principles, the OW. Room fell silent. Fleet Commander Jex's gas body turned yellow with confusion. What other weapons are there? Energy is the fundamental force of the universe. Morrison smiled for the first time since arriving. Energy is one force, but there are others. Mass, momentum, chemical reactions. Humans never developed energy weapons as our primary military technology. What do you mean? Asked Admiral Voss. Engineer Cole activated another display. It showed human weapons systems. The aliens leaned forward to examine the strange devices. These are railguns, Cole explained. They use magnetic fields to accelerate solid projectiles to extremely high speeds. No energy beam, no plasma, just metal moving very fast. And these, Commander Park added, pointing to another section, are explosive missiles. They carry chemical warheads that create shockwaves and shrapnel. Physical destruction rather than energy absorption. Commander Thexala's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. You still use solid projectiles? Like primitive kinetic weapons? Exactly, Morrison said. Except our projectiles move at significant fractions of light speed. When a tungsten rod hits something at those velocities, it doesn't matter how advanced the target's armor is. Admiral Voss studied the human weapon designs. They looked so simple compared to Viridian plasma technology. But how can these primitive weapons be effective against bioships that have evolved for millions of years? Because they never evolved to handle kinetic impacts, Commander Park explained. Think about it. What kind of natural environment produces high-velocity solid projectiles? Meteor impacts happen rarely. Volcanic eruptions create debris, but not at relativistic speeds. Morrison walked to the display and pointed at a Zephyrian bioship image. These creatures adapted to absorb and redirect energy because that's what they encountered in space: solar radiation, cosmic rays, energy weapons from other species. But they never faced anything like human warfare. Show them the test results, Engineer Cole said excitedly. Commander Park activated another file. We captured a small Zephyrian bioship 3 months ago. Dead, but with its adaptive systems still intact. We ran experiments. The display showed a laboratory setting. The aliens watched as human weapons fired at the bioship sample. Energy weapons were absorbed just as expected. But when the railgun fired, something different happened. The tungsten projectile punched straight through the bioarmor without triggering any adaptive response. The organic material simply couldn't process the threat fast enough. The bioship's systems tried to adapt, Cole explained, but adaptation takes time. The projectile was through and out the other side before the creature could even recognize what was happening. Fleet Commander Jex's gas body turned bright orange with excitement. You mean their greatest strength is useless against your weapons? Not just useless, Morrison said. Their adaptation system actually works against them. When they try to process kinetic threats, it confuses their other defense systems. Admiral Voss felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years of war. Hope. Real, genuine hope. Admiral Morrison, are you saying that your fleet can actually damage Zephyrian bioships? Damage them? Morrison's smile grew wider. Admiral, we're going to destroy them so completely that their own empire won't recognize what's left. Commander Thexala leaned forward on her insect legs. But your fleet is so small compared to theirs. Even if your weapons work, you'll be outnumbered hundreds to 1. Numbers matter less than you think, Commander Park said. Zephyrian tactics are based on overwhelming their enemies with superior technology. They've never faced an opponent who could match their adaptability with pure innovation. Morrison looked around the room at all the alien faces. Humanity spent 10,000 years learning how to kill other humans. We developed tactics for fighting enemies who were just as smart, just as adaptable, and just as determined as we were. The Zephyrians have never faced anything like that. Engineer Cole pulled up fleet deployment plans. We'd like to coordinate our next attack with your remaining forces. Use your ships to draw their attention while we demonstrate what human warfare looks like. Where? Admiral Voss asked. Morrison studied the tactical display. The Kepler 442 system. Intelligence reports show a major Zephyrian biofleet consuming the mining worlds there. Perfect target for our first strike. First strike? Commander Thexala buzzed. You plan to attack their main battle fleet with your small force? Not attack, Morrison corrected. Annihilate. When we're done, there won't be enough left of that biofleet for the Zephyrians to learn anything from the encounter. The room was quiet as the aliens processed this information. These humans, with their simple appearance and basic technology, claimed they could do what the greatest galactic civilizations could not. Admiral Voss looked at Morrison's calm, confident face. Either these humans were delusional, or they were about to change the course of the war. Admiral Morrison, she said slowly, when can your fleet be ready to move? We're ready now, he replied. The question is, are you ready to see what happens when humanity goes to war? The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Kira Voss stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the human vessels took formation. The alien ships spread out in their usual defensive pattern, ready for another grinding battle. But the human fleet moved differently. Their ships formed tight groups like hunting packs. Each group had different types of vessels working together in ways that seemed almost instinctive. Human fleet positions confirmed, reported Lieutenant Kex from his station. Admiral Morrison is requesting tactical command. Admiral Voss hesitated for only a moment. Granted, all coalition ships will follow human orders. On the main screen, the inner system came into view. 3 mining worlds orbited the yellow star, their surfaces stripped bare by massive bioships. The Zephyrian fleet hung in space like living cancers, feeding on the planet's resources. By the crystals, whispered Commander Zeth. Look at the size of that thing. The largest bioship was enormous, easily 10 times bigger than any coalition vessel. Its organic hull pulsed with veins of light, and smaller creatures swam around it like fish around a whale. Intelligence had designated it the apex predator. 57 enemy vessels confirmed, came Admiral Morrison's voice over the communication channel. Looks like we caught them with their guard down. Captain Steve. Carter's voice crackled through from the destroyer UES Defiant. Admiral, we're reading massive bioenergy signatures. These things are fully charged and ready for battle. Perfect, Morrison replied calmly. That means they'll be overconfident. Captain Rodriguez, take your group around the asteroid field. Captain Carter, you're with me on the direct approach. Admiral Voss watched the human ships break formation and spread out. It looked chaotic compared to proper military formations, but there was a pattern to it that reminded her of something wild and dangerous. The Zephyrian fleet detected the approaching ships and began to move. The bio-vessels turned toward the coalition force with lazy confidence. They had won this same battle dozens of times before. The apex predator pulsed brighter and sent out a communication burst. The translation came through as a mix of chemical signals and bioelectric patterns. Small flesh creatures come to feed us. We welcome your energy. We will grow stronger from your defeat. All human ships. Morrison's voice cut through the alien communication. Weapons free. Show them what Earth brings to this war. The first human ship to fire was Captain Carter's destroyer Defiant. Instead of the bright energy beams the Zephyrians expected, something different happened. A series of small flashes appeared along the ship's hull, followed by streaks of light moving faster than the eye could follow. Tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. They crossed the distance to the nearest bioship in seconds. The impact was unlike anything Admiral Voss had ever seen. The bioship's adaptive armor, designed to absorb energy weapons, offered no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The rods punched through the creature's hull like bullets through paper. The bioship convulsed as its internal systems tried to understand what was happening. Dark fluid leaked from the holes in its armor. Its bioluminescent patterns flickered and went dark. First kill confirmed, reported Captain Carter. Target down. But the humans were just getting started. Captain Amy Rodriguez's cruiser Vigilant opened fire from the asteroid field. Instead of railgun rounds, it launched missiles, hundreds of them. The Zephyrian point defense systems activated, trying to intercept the incoming projectiles with energy beams, but the missiles were designed to survive that kind of attack. They had thick armor and redundant systems. Most of them made it through. The explosions were spectacular. Chemical warheads detonated in precise patterns around the bioships. Shrapnel clouds tore through organic armor that had never evolved to handle high-velocity fragments. "What are those weapons?" Admiral Voss asked in amazement. Commander Park's voice came through from the human flagship. High-explosive anti-ship missiles with fragmenting warheads. Each one carries enough firepower to level a city block. 3 more bioships died in the first minute of combat. Their organic hulls ruptured and vented atmosphere mixed with biological fluids. The creatures' death cries echoed across radio frequencies as their bioelectric systems failed. The Zephyrian fleet finally began to react. The apex predator turned toward the human ships, its massive bulk moving with surprising speed. Energy weapons charged along its flanks, ready to deliver the kind of devastating attack that had destroyed so many coalition fleets. "Here it comes," Morrison said over the communication channel. "All ships, evasive maneuvers, don't let them target you." The great bioship fired. Streams of acidic plasma reached out toward the human vessels, enough energy to melt through any known armor. But the human ships were already moving, changing course and speed in random patterns. Most of the plasma missed entirely. The few hits that connected struck ships that had already moved their vital systems away from the impact points. Human damage control teams worked with practiced efficiency to seal breaches and reroute power. "Their fire control can't keep up with our maneuvering," reported Captain Rodriguez. "These things are used to fighting predictable targets." "Then let's be unpredictable," Morrison replied. "All ships, attack pattern Charlie. Time to show them how humans hunt." The human fleet split into smaller groups and began moving in seemingly random directions. But Admiral Voss began to see the pattern. They were herding the bioships, cutting off escape routes and forcing them into kill zones. Captain Carter's destroyer worked with 2 smaller corvettes to trap a medium-sized bioship. They fired from 3 different angles simultaneously, giving the creature no time to adapt to any single threat. The bioship tried to regenerate damage from the first impacts while the second and third waves tore it apart. "This is incredible," whispered Commander Zeth. "They're hunting them like pack animals." The apex predator roared across all frequencies and charged toward Admiral Morrison's flagship, the UES Liberty. The massive creature intended to end this battle by destroying the human commander. But Morrison had been expecting this. All ships focus fire on the big one. Coordinated strike pattern Delta. Every human vessel turned toward the apex predator and fired at once. Railgun rounds, missiles, and kinetic projectiles created a wall of death moving toward the bioship. The creature's adaptive systems went into overdrive, trying to process dozens of different threats simultaneously. Its bio-armor began growing thicker, developing new defensive structures, changing its internal layout to survive the incoming attack. But adaptation takes time, and the human weapons moved at the speed of physics. The first rounds punched through armor that was still forming. The explosions disrupted biosystems that were in the middle of changing. The creature's own adaptation process became a weakness, as its body couldn't decide what configuration would work best. The apex predator staggered under the assault. Massive holes appeared in its hull. Its bioluminescent patterns went chaotic as its nervous system tried to cope with damage it had never experienced before. "Target is hurt, but still active," reported Captain Rodriguez. "Recommend follow-up strike." "Negative," Morrison said. "Lieutenant Commander Murphy, you're up." A small corvette, the UES Ranger, broke away from the main fleet and accelerated toward the wounded apex predator. It was tiny compared to the bioship, like a minnow approaching a whale. But Lieutenant Commander Dan Murphy had something special planned. "Nuclear torpedoes armed and ready," he reported. "Beginning attack run." The Ranger fired 6 missiles in rapid succession. These were different from the conventional warheads used earlier. Each one carried a fusion warhead designed to detonate inside the target. The bioship's point defenses, already damaged and confused, managed to intercept only 2 of the incoming missiles. 4 nuclear warheads penetrated deep into the creature's body before detonating. The explosion was visible across the entire star system. The apex predator died in a cascade of nuclear fire, its biosystems overwhelmed by energy release beyond anything in its evolutionary experience. The remaining Zephyrian ships began to retreat, but Morrison wasn't finished. "No survivors," he ordered grimly. "They adapt too quickly. We can't let them learn from this encounter." The human fleet pursued the fleeing bioships with ruthless efficiency. None of the enemy vessels escaped to carry tactical data back to their empire. In less than 2 hours, the entire Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. Admiral Voss stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Where 57 enemy ships had been, now there was only debris and dissipating energy clouds. The human fleet hung in space, barely damaged, ready for the next battle. "Admiral Morrison," she said over the communication channel, "I've never seen anything like this. How did you make it look so easy?" Morrison's reply was matter-of-fact. "Admiral, the Zephyrians have been fighting the same kind of enemy for millions of years. They've never faced anything like human warfare. We just showed them what happens when evolution meets innovation." The news of the Kepler 442 victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Admiral Kira Voss sat in her quarters aboard Nexus Station, reading report after report of Zephyrian fleets suddenly changing their behavior. The bioships that had been so aggressive were now moving more carefully, avoiding direct confrontations. "They're scared," she said to Commander Zeth as he entered her room. "For the first time in 3 years, the Zephyrians are afraid." Zeth's insect eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Admiral Morrison's fleet has requested permission to attack the Rigel sector. Intelligence reports show a major bioship construction facility there." Admiral Voss stood up and walked to the viewing port. Outside, she could see the human ships preparing for their next mission. The crews worked with calm efficiency, loading ammunition and checking systems. They acted like this was just another day at work. "How many more victories like Kepler 442 do you think we need?" she asked. "Admiral Morrison believes we need to hit at least 6 major fleets before the Zephyrians can adapt their tactics," Zeth replied. "But each battle gets more dangerous. The enemy will start changing their approach." 2 days later, the combined fleet arrived at the Rigel sector. This time, the Zephyrians were ready for them. The bioships had formed defensive clusters around their construction facility, a massive organic structure that grew new vessels like fruit on a tree. Captain Steve Carter studied the enemy formation from the bridge of his destroyer Defiant. "They've learned something from our last attack," he reported to Admiral Morrison. "Look at their positioning." The bioships were no longer spread out in the usual confident patterns. Instead, they had formed tight groups with overlapping fields of fire. Smaller ships surrounded the larger ones, creating layers of defense. "Smart," admitted Commander Lisa Park from the flagship Liberty. "They're trying to limit our ability to pick them off one by one." Admiral Morrison examined the tactical display. "They're adapting their strategy, but they're still thinking like energy weapon users. All ships prepare for attack pattern Gamma. We're going to show them that human tactics can adapt too." Captain Amy Rodriguez spoke up from her cruiser Vigilant. "Admiral, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from their construction facility. It looks like they're growing something big in there." "Understood, Captain. That facility is our primary target, but first we need to clear the Guardian fleet." The human ships moved into attack formation, but this time they faced a more organized enemy. The Zephyrian bioships coordinated their fire, creating walls of acidic plasma that filled space with deadly energy. Lieutenant Ben Hughes managed the targeting systems aboard the Liberty. "Sir, their overlapping fire zones are making it hard to get close. We're taking more hits than usual." "Then we don't get close," Morrison replied. "All ships, maximum range engagement. Show them what human artillery can do." The human fleet stopped advancing and opened fire from extreme range. Railgun rounds crossed the vast distance at relativistic speeds, while long-range missiles followed complex flight paths to avoid interception. The Zephyrians had never faced this kind of attack before. Their tactics were based on close range, energy combat where both sides could see each other clearly. The idea of weapons that could kill from millions of kilometers away was foreign to them. The first bioship died before its crew even realized they were under attack. A tungsten rod moving at significant fractions of light speed punched through the creature's core, causing a cascade failure that killed it instantly. "Target down," reported Captain Carter, adjusting fire to target Cluster 2. But the Zephyrians were learning fast. The surviving bioships began moving in unpredictable patterns, trying to make themselves harder to hit. Some of them started charging toward the human fleet, accepting losses to get within their preferred fighting range. "Here they come," warned Commander Park. 6 bioships breaking formation and advancing at maximum speed. Morrison watched the approaching enemies on his tactical display. "Let them come. Sergeant Santos, prepare boarding teams. We're going." To try something new, Sergeant Maria Santos had been waiting for this order. She led a team of human Marines who specialized in fighting in hostile environments. "Marines are ready, Admiral. Boarding pods locked and loaded." As the Zephyrian bioships closed the distance, the human fleet appeared to retreat. The enemy crews felt a surge of confidence as they chased their prey. But it was a trap. When the bioships were committed to their charge, the humans suddenly reversed course. Small boarding pods launched from the human ships, each one carrying a squad of Marines armed with weapons designed for close combat. The pods attached themselves to the bioships' hulls and began cutting through the organic armor. The Zephyrians had never faced boarding actions before. Their ships were living creatures that could heal from damage, but they had no defense against enemies who were already inside. Sergeant Santos led her team through the corridors of a bioship that pulsed like the inside of a living heart. The walls were warm and wet, covered with veins that carried nutrients throughout the creature. Strange sounds echoed around them as the ship's immune system tried to understand what was happening. "Plant the charges here," Santos ordered her demolition expert, "right next to what looks like the main nervous system." The explosive devices were designed specifically for bioships. Instead of simple chemical reactions, they used sonic weapons that disrupted the creature's neural networks. When they detonated, the bioship would lose coordination between its different systems. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Dan Murphy aboard the Corvette Ranger was dealing with his own challenges. 3 bioships had surrounded his small vessel and were trying to crush it with energy weapons. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported his damage control officer. "We're venting atmosphere." Murphy gritted his teeth and checked his weapon status. Load nuclear torpedoes. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. But rescue came from an unexpected source. Captain Rodriguez's Vigilant appeared behind the bioships and opened fire with everything she had. Missile after missile slammed into the creature's rear armor, causing massive damage. "Thanks for the save, Captain," Murphy said over the communication channel. "That's what teamwork is for, Commander. Now let's finish these things off." The battle continued for 3 hours, but gradually the human advantages became clear. Their ability to coordinate multiple types of attacks overwhelmed the Zephyrians' adaptive systems. Every time the bioships started to counter one threat, the humans switched to a different weapon or tactic. Dr. Karen Bell watched the battle from the Liberty Science Station. "Admiral, I'm seeing something interesting in the bioships' behavior patterns. They're starting to show stress responses in their organic systems." "What kind of stress?" Morrison asked. "Their adaptation processes are being overloaded. They're trying to evolve defenses against kinetic weapons, explosive weapons, sonic weapons, and boarding actions all at the same time. Their biosystems can't handle that much change." Morrison smiled grimly. "Then let's give them even more to think about. All ships switch to incendiary rounds. Let's see how they adapt to fire." The next wave of human attacks used weapons that created intense heat and flames. The bioships, with their organic hulls and internal atmospheres, proved highly vulnerable to fire-based weapons. Several creatures died when flames spread through their internal systems faster than they could regenerate. "Admiral," reported Captain Carter, "the construction facility is starting to release whatever they were building. It's big." On the main screen, a new bioship emerged from the organic construction facility. It was larger than anything they had seen before, with armor that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. This creature had been designed specifically to fight human weapons. "Looks like they've been busy," Morrison observed. "All ships focus fire on the new target. Let's see what their latest creation can do." The new bioship moved with surprising speed for something so large. Its weapons were different too, firing solid projectiles instead of energy beams. The Zephyrians were trying to fight humans with human-style weapons, but copying the weapons was not enough. The bioship's projectiles were slow and predictable compared to human railgun rounds. Its armor, designed to stop kinetic impacts, was vulnerable to the sonic weapons that had proven so effective. "It's trying to mimic our tactics," Commander Park observed, "but it doesn't understand the principles behind them." The new bioship died like all the others, overwhelmed by weapons and tactics it couldn't comprehend fast enough to counter. When the construction facility itself was destroyed, the remaining Zephyrian forces finally broke and ran. But this time, a few enemy ships managed to escape into hyperspace before the humans could stop them. "Let them go," Morrison said when his captains asked for permission to pursue. "It's time the Zephyrian Empire learned what they're really facing." Admiral Voss watched the retreating bioships disappear into hyperspace. For the first time, Zephyrian vessels were carrying news of defeat back to their masters. The enemy would finally understand that humanity was not just another species to be conquered. "What happens now?" she asked Morrison. "Now they know we exist," he replied. "And they know we can hurt them. The real war is about to begin." The emergency session at Nexus Station brought together representatives from across the galaxy. Admiral Kira Voss looked around the packed conference room at faces she had never seen before. Word of humanity's victories had spread, and species that had remained neutral were now asking to join the coalition. "The Altaran Republic wishes to pledge 12 battle cruisers to the human fleet," announced Ambassador Lex, her blue skin shimmering with excitement. "Our people have suffered Zephyrian raids for 2 years. We want revenge." Similar offers came from a dozen other species. The Molari Confederation offered supply ships. The Centauri Collective wanted to share their intelligence networks. Everyone wanted to be part of what they were calling the human miracle. Admiral Jake Morrison listened to each offer with polite attention, but Admiral Voss could see he was thinking about something else. When the formal presentations ended, she approached him in the corridor outside. "You look worried, Admiral," she said. "These new allies should be good news." Morrison stopped walking and turned to face her. "Admiral Voss, How long do you think it takes for information to travel across the Zephyrian Empire? The question surprised her. Their bioships are connected through some kind of organic network. Intelligence estimates suggest nearly instantaneous communication across their territory. Why? Because that means every Zephyrian commander now knows exactly how we destroyed their fleets. They've had 2 weeks to analyze our tactics and develop countermeasures. Commander Lisa Park joined them, carrying a data pad with fresh intelligence reports. Admiral, we're getting concerning news from our deep space monitoring stations. Zephyrian fleet movements have changed dramatically. She activated the pad's holographic display. Red dots showed enemy positions across 17 star systems, but instead of the scattered patrol patterns they had seen before, the bioships were now moving in coordinated formations toward a single point. They're concentrating their entire military force, Park continued. Every available bioship is converging on the Proxima Nebula. Our estimates suggest they're assembling the largest fleet in galactic history. Admiral Voss felt her crystal heart skip a beat. How many ships? Over 3,000 biovessels, Park replied quietly, including at least 50 of their largest command ships. The corridor fell silent. 3,000 ships was more than the entire galactic coalition had ever fielded at one time. Even with their new allies, the humans would be outnumbered 20-1. Morrison studied the tactical display with calm eyes. They're not just trying to stop us, he said. They're trying to end this war with one decisive battle. Can we avoid it? Admiral Voss asked. Maybe attack their supply lines instead, force them to spread out again? No, Morrison said firmly. They've learned too much about our capabilities. If we don't face them now, they'll adapt their entire empire to counter our advantages. This might be our only chance to hit them before they become truly prepared. Dr. Karen Bell's voice came through the communication system. Admiral Morrison, please report to the science lab. We've discovered something you need to see. They found Dr. Bell examining biological samples from destroyed Zephyrian ships. Her expression was grim as she showed them microscopic images of the creatures' adaptive systems. The bioships that escaped our last battle carried more than just tactical information, she explained. They brought back actual samples of our weapons' effects on their organic systems. She switched to another image showing Zephyrian biomaterial that had been altered in disturbing ways. They're growing new armor types specifically designed to resist kinetic impacts. Look at this structure. It's like organic steel mesh woven through living tissue. Commander Park leaned closer to examine the samples. How effective is it? Against our current weapons, maybe 60% reduction in damage. But that's not the worst part. Dr. Bell activated another display. They're also developing bioweapons designed to counter human physiology. The new images showed microscopic organisms that looked like tiny machines made of living tissue. These are targeted bioviruses. They're engineered to attack human DNA specifically. If they deploy these in combat, our boarding teams won't be able to operate on their ships. Admiral Voss realized the implications immediately. They're not just adapting to our weapons. They're adapting to fight humans specifically. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, he activated his communication device. All human ship captains report to the main briefing room. Emergency tactical meeting in 1 hour. The briefing room was packed with human officers. Captain Steve Carter sat next to Captain Amy Rodriguez, both of them looking tense. Lieutenant Commander Dan Murphy reviewed fleet status reports while Sergeant Maria Santos prepared boarding equipment that might no longer be useful. Morrison stood at the front of the room, his expression serious but determined. By now you've all heard about the Zephyrian superfleet gathering in the Proxima Nebula. 3,000 bioships, all of them adapted to fight our weapons and tactics. He activated the main display, showing the enemy concentration. Intelligence suggests they plan to use this force to crush us completely, then continue their expansion across the galaxy with immunity to human-style warfare. Captain Carter raised his hand. Admiral, with respect, those odds are impossible. Even if every shot we fire is a kill, we don't have enough ammunition to destroy 3,000 ships. You're right, Captain, Morrison agreed, which is why we're not going to fight them ship to ship. He changed the display to show detailed scans of the Proxima Nebula. The enemy has chosen their battleground poorly. The nebula contains high concentrations of ionized gas and electromagnetic interference. Perfect conditions for a different kind of warfare. Commander Park stood up and joined Morrison at the display. We've been analyzing the nebula's composition. It's essentially a giant cloud of highly reactive materials just waiting for the right catalyst. Dr. Bell entered the room carrying a small device that hummed with contained energy. This is an experimental weapon we've been developing. A fusion igniter designed to trigger chain reactions in ionized gas. Morrison smiled for the first time in days. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to fight the Zephyrian fleet. We're going to burn it. The plan was audacious even by human standards. Instead of engaging the bioships directly, they would use the nebula itself as a weapon. Fusion igniters, placed at strategic points, would trigger a cascade reaction that would turn the entire cloud of gas into a stellar-scale furnace. The bioships won't be able to adapt to this, Dr. Bell explained. You can't evolve immunity to being inside a star. But the plan required precise timing and coordination. Human ships would have to penetrate deep into the nebula, place the igniters, and escape before the reaction began, all while under attack from the largest military force in galactic history. Questions? Morrison asked when the briefing ended. Captain Rodriguez raised her hand. Admiral, what are the chances of success? Morrison was quiet for a moment. Honestly, maybe 30%. But if we don't try this, the chances of humanity surviving the next year are close to zero. The room fell silent as the officers processed this information. They were being asked to attempt something that had never been tried before, against odds that were essentially hopeless. Sergeant Santos stood up from her seat. Admiral, when do we leave? Her simple question broke the tension in the room. One by one, the other officers voiced their agreement. They understood the risks, but they also understood what was at stake. We leave in 6 hours, Morrison announced. Get your ships ready and your crews prepared. We're about to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity's survival. As the officers filed out to prepare their vessels, Admiral Voss approached Morrison one last time. Admiral, I want you to know that whatever happens, humanity has already changed the course of this war. You've given the galaxy hope again. Morrison shook her crystal hand in the human gesture of farewell. Admiral, we didn't come here to give hope. We came here to win, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Outside Nexus Station, the human fleet prepared for what might be their final battle. The ships looked small against the vast darkness of space, but their crews worked with calm determination. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, even if they hadn't known it. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, armed with nothing but their weapons, their tactics, and their absolute refusal to surrender. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn why humans had spent 10,000 years fighting each other. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one that refuses to accept defeat.